Welcome to the very first Maidstone British Democrats meeting. It's fantastic that you've all come here today, and it's really appreciated by the British Democrats. And hopefully, we will be at the start, we are at the start of what will be a good push towards making inroads and success for the British Democrats in Maidstone, and showing that the Lib Lab Con are not going to have it their own way, that we're at the moment small, but we are growing, and my own personal ambition is to drag this party forward as quickly and as positively as possible, and no stone will be left unturned, and I want to see this party reaching strength and making inroads locally and eventually, when the time is right, nationally too. But when we talk about nationally, I can't help, perhaps like a lot of you, think of the complete and utter disgrace that sits in Westminster that calls themselves the Conservative Party. Conserving what? Immigration? I don't think so. And I'm pretty sure many of you are quite sure that as far as the borders are concerned, they don't conserve and haven't conserved anything for a long, long time. So Conservatives, conserving what? You don't conserve the borders. You let in 500,000 a year, and that's just those that are considered as legal, as part of the incoming peoples that arrive. But that's not gross. Gross immigration for this country is approximately 250,000 a year, and it's been like that since the start of this Tory government, 2010. So conserving what? And then you've got the immigration levels, call it whatever you want. It's illegal and it's an act of criminality. You are, in my view, committing a criminal act. You're breaking and entering. What is the difference between rocking up on the shores illegally into somebody's country and basically knocking on somebody's door? Nobody's in. You just barge on in. Yeah. That's the same thing. Yeah. You're coming into somebody's domain, uninvited. Nobody's asked you, and what the politicians say? Oh, we're stopping the boats. Stopping the boats. You haven't stopped one. So how are you stopping the boats? You haven't. What you are committing, as the Lib Lab Con trick, as I call it, you are committing a gross act of treason against, not the state, against the nation. Treason against the state is treason against the government. Well, quite frankly, this government isn't worth much, hasn't been worth much for a long, long time. You're committing treason against the nation, and that is far more serious. Yeah. You're betraying the people, the land, and decades, hundreds of years of history that goes with it. Who on earth, Rishi Sunak, do you think you are, apart from a puppet for the World Economic Forum? What a complete and utter shower that we are unfortunate to be having running us or ruining us. You've got things like the Green Belt. Now, that's another point where you could say, well, conserving what? They don't conserve the Green Belt either. You look nearby. You've got you've got places in Tunbridge, you've got places in Maidstone, you've got places all over the country. They can't help build on quick enough. So you've got places that have been countryside for hundreds, thousands of years, and you're just building on them willy-nilly. And so what are you conserving? You're conserving nothing. You're not conserving the borders. You're not conserving the land. You're not conservatives. You're effectively just like the Republican Party in America, where you've had Dick Cheney's daughter, I forget her name for the minute, but people like her are referred to as rhinos. So people in government, in the Tory government, they're effectively the same. They're rhinos. They're conservatives in name only. Sinos, yeah. To me, they are victims of what I would call the long march through the institutions of cultural Marxism, which was waged way back in the 1920s from the likes of Antonio Gramsci and people like Leon Trotsky, and it's basically ciphered its way through the entire establishment, whether it's the media, whether it's the church, whether it's the political establishment, you name it. It's basically the education. It's all fallen victim to cultural Marxism and the NHS, and so you're going to the likes of the Royal Free, and they're paying managers to basically say, you can't have this job. You're the wrong colour. So, excuse me, isn't that against the Race Relations Act? Is it or is it not? So your hypocrisy knows no bounds either. So, and on top of that, you had about 10, 11 years ago, he was a planning minister for the Tories under David Cameron, and his name was Nick Bowles, right? And he wanted to build upon 1,500 square miles of countryside every year, right? So that's a huge swathe of land, if you think about it, every year being lost. But what's driving it? It's not the natives that have fled London. It's those that are being brought in, that are being allowed in, legally and illegally. As part, basically, yeah, they say it's a conspiracy theory. The Great Replacement. Is it a conspiracy? You look at London. London is now a British minority. Birmingham is. Leicester, Luton, Slough. So it's a conspiracy theory? Excuse me, I don't think so. You look at the statistics, you look at the demographics. That's not conspiracy. That is reality. That is treason. So we're and he come out with what was it? He come out with? He said we're going to protect Greenbelt, but if people want to have housing for their kids, they have got to accept we need to build more on some open land. Again, who for? Who for? Conservatives. Conserving what? Nothing. Not a damn thing. Not a damn thing. So what are the ramifications? The ramifications of what they have unloaded onto this country over the decades. And mass immigration. You've got both legal and illegal. You've got housing needs. You've got a greater need for more roads, more building on the countryside. You've got a downward spiral. None of it is positive. And then you've got increased levels of crime. And then you've got, when you're putting people up in RAF bases like Manston or places like up in Shrewsbury, where one pub up there called the Lion Hotel, they're going from 68 intake to nearly triple that, 180 something. So you have the added problem there of, well, these are all men, people in this for this hotel up in Shrewsbury, it's for men only, right? And places like these RAF bases that are being used to house them, it's all men. But when you're in a hotel, you can just wander off and do as you please. So who knows? Are they going to come back? If I was illegal, I wouldn't. Bye-bye, see you later. So what are they then free to do? See a nice young girl? Oh, we'll have some of that. Thanks, Rishi. Thanks, Boris. Yeah. Boris, the so-called tough guy of the Tory party. People need to remember that when he was Mayor of London, he wanted an amnesty for 400,000 illegals. So Mr. Johnson, Mr. Boris Johnson, I'll get Brexit done. He hasn't even managed to do this. All this bravado that he's a tough Tory. No, you're not. You're another gutless, spineless Tory. If you or I were Prime Minister, I don't think any of us would have been so quick to resign our position as Prime Minister because some pipsqueak in the civil service didn't like what we were doing, or some parliamentary colleague in the cabinet didn't want us there either. Do you know, any one of us would have said, "You don't want me here, I don't want you here, you're fired, bye-bye." Another spineless, gutless Tory, just in the long line. Whether it's Boris Johnson, whether it's David Cameron, whether it's Margaret Thatcher. Yes, holier than thou, Margaret Thatcher, another in the long line of traitors. Who remembers, oh yes, I understand the British people's feeling of being swamped. And what did she then do? Letting the Vietnamese boat people. So yeah, so much for her understanding. And anyway, so you got, people have been, victims of sexual assaults, of people that have been let in illegal, who shouldn't even be here in the first place. So, what is the end result? The end result is minority status. But it doesn't have to be like this, because unlike Reform or the Tories or anybody else that calls themselves conservative, patriotic, right-wing, they're nothing of the sort. It's just more of the same for the likes of Reform. They won't do anything. They'll perhaps turn the tap down a little bit slower, but the process continues. The process of replacement continues. It doesn't stop until eventually you've got places like Whitechapel, you've got places like Newham, you've got places Birmingham, Bradford, Burnley, Oldham, where Nelson up in Lancashire, where you think, Jesus Christ, where it's an Islamic time bomb that, thanks to the likes of the Lib Lab Contric, they've basically thrown into the lap of the British people, and the only ones that are going to stand up and say, no, this isn't the way, this isn't what you're going to be allowed to do, is the British Democrats. Another Tory. Yeah, I'm giving the Tories a good kicking, but do you know what? They damn well deserve it. Yeah. They absolutely deserve it. A few nights ago, I was watching GB News, and so-called right-wing Tory Jacob Rees-Mogg, right, opens his mouth and says he was conducting an interview with Ben Habib, former Brexit Party MEP, and they were going on about the backlog of asylum cases. So Rees-Mogg pipes up with saying, perhaps we should grant an amnesty to the 92,000 asylum backlog. Maybe that would get rid of the backlog really quickly. Yeah, of course it would, Jacob, if you want to surrender. But then, of course, that is what your party is very, very good at. Surrender. It surrenders on everything. Your Conservative Party conserves nothing. It conserves nothing of morality. It conserves nothing of the status of this country as a British majority, which you're very eager and quick to want to push into a minority. And what's the end result of that? That is extinction. Thanks, Tory Party. You can stick that where the sun don't shine. So, yeah. So you've got that, and then you've got the likes of Labour. They go on about recently how they're talking tough on immigration. Well, we all know what you did when you were last in government under Tony Blair. Your party thought, do you know what? We're going to rub the Tories' noses in immigration. So what were they doing? They were basically bringing anyone and everyone they could, including from Africa. When I was a councillor in Barking and Dagenham, we saw, the 12 of us, myself, Richard Barnbrook, Bob Bailey, and anybody that was active in Barking and Dagenham at that time, between 2006 and 2010 as councillors, the rate of change was incredible. I've never seen something change so fast. It was breathtaking speed. And you went from about 2002 to when I moved there, 2004, the British population in Barking and Dagenham was, high 90s, mid to high 90s%. By the time we were done, in 2010, the British people were on the verge of minority status, which I think they now are in Barking and Dagenham. What a disgrace. That's Labour for you. And then they go on about how we're going to do this, that and the other. No, you're not. No, you're not. You're a bunch of cultural Marxists who won't do anything because you're basically lying through your teeth. And that's why we call you the Labour Party. Yeah. And then they're going on about going after the Tories for their Partygate. Well, sorry, kid, weren't you at a party recently during all the COVID? So you're a hypocrite. You're a hypocrite, along with your Angela Rayner. So you can't say much. And so when it comes to things like that, about they want to talk tough on immigration as well. They want to basically what they want to do is they want to raise the level of money that people coming from abroad can earn. So whether you're legal or illegal, what's that going to do? If you're illegal and you're thinking, oh, do you know what, I can earn a lot more money now because Labour are doing this, that and the other, what's that going to do? That's going to be like bees to honey. So you're going to attract even more. And do you think they're going to stop it? Do you think they're going to do an about turn and say, no, this was wrong? Of course they won't. Not if you consider what they've done to London or other parts of the UK. They won't stop. They're basically, Labour and the Tories, two cheeks of the same rear end. And then you got an economic disaster that has been unfurled before the British people, and we all know that people have struggled during and after the lockdown and everything. But then the Labour go on about how we're going to be so good with the economy. Like when Gordon Brown sold off the gold bullion for just over £2 billion, and then about a decade or so later, it was worth nearly 20 billion. So basically, your sums, fella, you need to go back to uni, right? Or take your shoes and socks off and start counting with your toes. Right. So, what an utter disgrace. But you know what? It doesn't have to be like this. It really doesn't. Because there is a simple way to stop all this, once and for all. Stop supporting Labour, stop supporting the Conservatives, stop supporting the Lib Dems, who are they, and start supporting nationalism. Start supporting nationalism in the form of the British Democrats. We are aiming towards sensible, proud, patriotic nationalism, where people can look to us and say, do you know what, there's something there, they've got something, you know, I want to know more. And do you know what? I'd like to maybe even join. I'd like to join the British Democrats, and hopefully you know, there'll be people here that will see that and say, well, you know, I'd like to join and get active as well. So there is an answer, and it's not the Lib Lab Contric, it's the British Democrats.